Night shifts have always carried an eerie weight, a feeling of isolation that seeps into the bones of those who endure the late hours. The darkness stretching endlessly outside, while fluorescent lights flicker inside. Tonight is no different, or so it seems, until the silence breaks, and something far more sinister begins to unfold. This is the tale of a night guard alone in an abandoned mall, where the ghosts of the past refuse to remain silent. Inspired by the horror movie Mirrors, the events that follow will make you question reality itself. The clock strikes midnight, and Daniel adjusts his uniform, the radio on his belt crackling softly with static. His flashlight beam cuts through the empty corridors of Brookhaven Mall, a once bustling shopping center now scheduled for demolition shelves. Lie empty mannequins stare blankly through shattered glass storefronts and dust coats. Every surface. He sighs, rubbing the fatigue from his eyes. Another long shift alone. But the pay is good, and he needs it more than ever. The sound of footsteps echoes in the distance. His grip tightens around the flashlight. He knows he is the only one here. The security feed showed nothing. No intruders. No squatters. Yet, the rhythmic steps grow louder, measured, deliberate. He calls out his voice, swallowed by the empty halls. Is someone there? No answer. Only the faint sound of something dragging against the tile floor. His pulse quickens. He moves toward the source. His radio crackles again. A whisper, barely audible run. His breath catches in his throat, the words sending ice through his veins. He turns sharply, scanning the area, but the corridor is empty. The mannequins are still. The storefronts untouched. Nothing is out of place except for the mirror near the food court. He swears he sees movement, but his own reflection stands still. His heart pounds as he steps closer. His reflection does not mimic his movements. He lifts a hand. His mirror self remains frozen, wide eyes locked onto him. Daniel stumbles back, crashing into a table. The sound shatters the silence, but his reflection only grins, stretching lips too wide, too unnatural. The radio crackles again. A deep, distorted laugh fills the empty mall. He bolts down the hall, his footsteps echoing louder, louder, as if something is running alongside him. He dares a glance at the mirror displays lining the walls. His reflection is not alone. Dark figures writhe in the glass, reaching, clawing at their confines. Faces twisted in silent screams. They want out. He skids to a stop, panting, his breath fogging the air. Despite the warmth of the building, the lights flicker, shadows elongate, shifting, stretching, reaching toward him. The mannequins at the store entrances have moved. He knows they were facing forward, yet now they turn heads slightly tilted, watching unblinking. He backs away, his throat, dry sweat cold against his skin. The radio bursts to life again. Run now. A shriek rips through the silence, the sound of glass shattering around him. He spins to find a figure emerging from the mirror. Its body, fractured and jagged like broken glass. Twisted limbs stretching toward him. Daniel stumbles backward, tripping over his own feet. His flashlight rolls away, spinning in circles, its beam slicing through the dark. He crawls, reaching for it, but something cold latches onto his ankle, yanking him back. He kicks, thrashes, but the grip tightens, slicing into his skin. He screams, pulling himself forward, clawing at the floor, his fingers leaving trails of blood. Then suddenly the grip vanishes. He gasps, scrambling to his feet, backing against the nearest wall. The mirrors lining the corridor reflect not him, but an empty hallway, as if he is not there at all. His breathing is ragged. He stares at his reflection, or rather, the lack of it. He waves nothing. He shouts. No sound. His own presence erased. Panic grips his chest. He spins, trying to find an escape, but the walls seem to shift, closing in. The mannequins are closer now, their once featureless faces twisted into grotesque grins. A whisper slithers through the air. You should not have stayed. He feels something brush against his shoulder, ice-cold breath against his neck. He bolts toward the emergency exit, but the door does not budge. No matter how hard he pulls, he pounds against it screaming, but no sound comes, only silence. Thick, suffocating. A glance at the mirror beside him sends his stomach lurching. His reflection is there staring, but it is not him. Hollow eyes, black voids of endless nothingness. The figure lifts a hand, presses it against the glass. The surface ripples like water. He watches in horror as his reflection steps forward out of the mirror while he feels himself being pulled back, trapped within the glass, his screams lost in the void. The next morning, the mall is silent as the demolition crew arrives, finding no trace of the night guard except for a single cracked mirror reflecting an empty corridor. Or is it empty? Look closer. Is something watching from within?